That's awesome. Oh my
How's
gosh.
that thing?
Holy cow.
Freaking dinosaur.
Look how
I'm still
big.
trying to work on gluing it all together. It's just in pieces right now.
Put your
But
like fist in like the eye socket there.
in the eye socket? Oh
It's almost
God.
that big, isn't it? Oh
Yeah,
my
I could
God.
get my hand through that. It's
Holy
nuts.
cow.
It's crazy.
Wow. So how many pigeons did you shoot today?
Season's closed, but before the season closed, I got 32. It was a good day.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
And those are what we call bald pates, the ones with the white heads.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Good eating.
Yeah, they're
Right by
pretty
the
good
sky.
eating. What else have you been I guess in the Bahamas they've got everybody on total lockdown, yeah?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I mean, they're doing
It's
a good
silly.
job in Nassau where it's needed, but here, where I mean, we don't have a single case on the island, and they
Where's your
got
how
us on
far is your
full
closest
lockdown.
neighbor?
It's right across the road here, not far at all.
Hmm.
Yeah, we're pretty much. I'm like in Clarence Town, so in the community, in the capital,
Right.
it's still a ghost town, but
Jeez, man. Well,
yeah,
hopefully you can get out there soon. Obviously, always watching each other's videos and stuff, and you had some pretty wild stuff right before this
yeah.
all went down. Um,
Well,
but
weekdays I'm allowed to get out, so tomorrow I've been rigging up all weekend, and tomorrow's Swordfish Redemption Day,
nice. I'd love to see
and I'm
that.
gonna go for a squid. So
Nice. How deep are you catching them there? Over
like
1,500?
1800 to 2100 to
Mm-hmm.
2200. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, hopefully you get a
So,
slug. So you guys, your family moved from Spanish Wells, right? Or where?
well, originally Nassau,
Nassau. Okay.
and we basically the kids always grew up on the out islands. They moved to Russell Island, which is like connected to Spanish Wells by a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up there till I was 12, and then we moved to Long Island, and I've been
Mm-hmm.
here since then.
Right.
So,
So,
yeah.
you know, there's not a lot going on
No.
in Long Island. So naturally, you were drawn to the water. And I mean, when did you get really serious, and good at spearfishing? Did you ever go and work like the commercial smack boats or anything like that?
I did a lot of commercial diving. When I started, I basically began as a commercial diver.
Mm-hmm.
Been spearfishing since I was 7, but even in my commercial days, I've always been a typical shallow Bahamian diver.
Mm-hmm.
I've never really gone more than 30, 40 feet on average day, basically. It wasn't until about 5 years ago when I met up with Ryan Myers,
Mm-hmm.
and Ryan spent several months here, and I got to take him out and pick his brain and watch him perform. And I mean, he completely inspired me.
Yeah.
And from there, I got to learn so much from Ryan, and it basically took off from there. But any free diver or elite spear, I was just picking their brains and learning from everybody, and just putting it to
Mm-hmm.
the test.
So now that you've shot a couple of pelagics, I know that when Ryan was there, he would text me all the time, be like, "How do you get close to these things? Like, how are you doing it?" And with the wahoo, they're tough as it is with a gun until you figure
Yeah,
it out. And then once you kind of figure them out with a gun, you can get a fair few of them. But with a pole spear, I mean, whenever we have clients and you guys going or whatever, I always say you just need to wait for the one. There's gonna be
yeah,
one eventually that's
right,
gonna be real dumb. He's gonna come right under you, or he's gonna get so focused on the chum, he's gonna come up and you're gonna be able to time it and go into it. So, what
right.
would be your best suggestion for trying to pole spear a wahoo?
What I found that works over here, first off, you have to have the right team.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has to be on the same page and work together. I mean, they don't have to be great divers. They just have to listen.
Right.
Once everyone listens and cooperates, then it all plays out smoothly. And what I found that works best for the wahoo over here is the first impression, the first introduction is everything. It's so important.
Why are these things so
And we float in the water, blue water, static on the surface, breathing up. We got a float, we got a chum line, flasher, working the chum. Everybody's huddled super close together, tied up in a bunch, just like a fad, just like
mm-hmm.
floating. And we wait for the wahoo. They either come up from the deep or they come in from the side. And we introduce ourselves as not a threat,
Mm-hmm.
just as, something that they can approach. And you'll see them. They'll come in, they'll be cautious, they'll be doing their first initial circle, they'll be eyeballing us, trying to figure out, what's going on here. Is this something I can take advantage of, or are they predators? What's going on? And so we just give them that time to feel comfortable, let them come into the chum, let them get close. And once they start eating the first few pieces of chum and they get hooked, then we send a diver down, try to get completely on top of them and bomb them vertically. Sometimes they'll come up on the side and you'll get a good side shot at them. But yeah, kind of just working as a fad, letting them approach you.
Kind of a
never chasing the wahoo.
I'm with you on that, and it's very difficult because everyone is so competitive, and usually people kind of get buck fever when they see them, and they're like, "Oh," and they want to rush away. But when you actually are targeting them, and okay, I don't have to really swim back and forth, to kind of put myself in position. When I'm just doing a drift, it's a heck of a lot easier because you can just set up in the drift and be in the right place. Now, this year how many times did you actually touch them? Like
the wahoo?
Yeah, how many did you hit?
I mean, I've hit probably 7 or 8 of them. I've only landed 3.
Wow.
Well, 2.5.
2.5. Hey, it counts, man.
Yeah.
Nice. And when you came with us this year, we're not going to say where, you got a yellowfin literally like first drop of the day, didn't you?
Well, the first drop, I hit one.
Oh,
it was
right,
the first one of the day. And, I hit him wrong. Basically, I hit him in the top loin. It was a bit of a high shot in the soft meat. And I watched him take the bungee, take the first flow under, and then just pull off and ripped out. And I saw the shot. It was a long shot, but it had good penetration. It was good 7 inches in. And it just ripped him out from that top loin. It's just so soft. So we kind of talked about it in the boat and came up with a conclusion that it has to be a tail shot or nothing. And that was kind of the goal from there, just try to get that tail shot.
Whenever I was trying to do it, and it's been a while since I've tried to do it with a pole spear, but whenever I was going to Panama and Costa Rica and stuff, I had a couple good chances on them, but the school ones are very difficult with the pole spear just because it's too much maneuvering. So when we were in Ascension and I shot the real big one, I've told clients this many, many times, I'm like, try to shoot them as they're coming like at you, kind of at like a 45, and have them basically swim into the shaft so that their momentum is helping. Because with a pole spear, I mean, you've only got so much, punch. And that one that I shot, he was coming up kind of perfect, and I shot him just like that. And same thing, like I didn't know how good I got him, but it went like, if you look on your fish there, like where that gold line ends, like up near his gill plate, it went in there above his pec all the way and came out like his freaking belly. And that one was 219. So you figure it had to go through like 2.5 feet of fit. I don't know how it did it, but the only theory I can say is he kind of swam through it. But what's some other good advice? Have you tried to get the yellowfins over there on your side?
I've never been able to try and put a proper day in. And the yellowfin, I've seen them in the water before. And I've seen them in the perfect situation when I'm fishing, when I'm out there just throwing live baits, from the boat, rod and reel. I've had it where they're like 5 feet under the boat, and it just kills me. It just pains me. I just want to jump in the water so bad. But they are so much harder to get because it takes so much more to align to get a proper day and a good effort put in. And you got to have, again, another elite crew. You got to find all the right bait. You got to have the right weather. You got to have the boat driver in particular dialed in with not just driving the boat, but working the chum, working the live baits.
So here's an argument for you here. So it's very, very easy around the world to get tunas up with live baits. The challenge is you cannot control what that bait does. The baits are going to swim away. Some of them are going to school up underneath the boat. Obviously, you've got shark problems like T is saying here. What I've always said is you've got to be able to transition them to chunks. And sometimes it's just not possible. Like in California, we talked the other day, before I went out there, I was like, there's got to be a way to chum them, because they got to be eating something. The fishermen are catching them. So
Yeah.
when we went out, I took a ton of live bait, and we got them busting live baits, but I could never get them to transition to chunks. And I imagine
Yeah.
if you did it like commercial style and went out there and really made it rain, you could, and you could keep them up. But for the most part, yellowfins are much easier to transition. And you just need to find what they're eating. It might be, if you're live baiting pilchards, you might have to have fresh dead pilchards to transition to that. And then once you get them hooked on that, then you can chunk bonitas or blackfins or yellowfin belly or something like that. But you
Yeah.
got to slow them down, because you can't anticipate where a live bait is going to go and where a tuna is going to go. There's too
Yeah.
many.
There's too much going on there.
There's too much going on. So
I mean, what we found that it kind of helps is to just pop both eyeballs out and let them just swim round and round in a tight circle. But I mean, even still, like you said, it's hard. They come in like a badminton birdie and just swipe at that.
yeah.
You know?
Well, the next thing we're going to get into is this ridiculous animal. I'm sorry it's not on here. I got to figure out how to tweak all this stuff. But this is your Cubera, and if you guys go on Luke's Instagram page, you'll see this thing. How tall are you, Luke?
5'9".
5'9". So you're not a midget, but
I hope not.
this or whatever they call them, little people now.
Yeah.
This, I mean, I don't think in all of my travels I've seen maybe one or two that even came close to this. I saw one in Brazil amongst a school of 30 or 40 over 80 pounds. And years ago, we saw one that was well over 100 in the northern Abacos. But
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like this thing just boggles my mind. Like, what was this thing
Yeah,
doing?
it
Have you
is.
ever even heard of or seen anybody talk about one that big down there?
Yeah. And that's the thing too, it's like I've always dreamed about getting the world record Cubera, and I always dreamed about going and getting like a 70 or 80 pound Cubera. I had never even imagined or dreamed about, triple digit Cubera like that. It's just unthinkable.
So when you first put this up, I texted you immediately and I said, please tell me you shot the one out of the marina. Because
That's what everybody thought.
there's a giant
Everyone
one.
thought I got it off the dock.
Yeah, there's a big one that lives in the marina there. But if you guys
Yeah.
haven't seen it, Luke has one of the absolute funniest videos I've ever seen of, what did you call your dummy that you made and threw off the boat?
Oh, Jimmy.
It is hilarious. You need to repost that like tomorrow, and I'll post it too.
Yeah.
So, all these numbnuts have been feeding the sharks for so long. They're in the marinas like so bad. God forbid you ever fall off. So, long story short, Luke made this dummy, Jimmy. He throws him into the water, and he immediately gets absolutely annihilated, like just torn to pieces, and it's terrifying. But
It's
there's a
scary,
big
man. You do not want to fall overboard over there.
no, and that's how
Done.
so many marinas are, man. It terrifies me. But
Yeah.
there's a big Cubera that lives in there too, but he's still only what, 70, 80 pounds?
Yeah, I mean, not even. I think 60. I've been hand feeding him. He comes around the dock sometimes when we clean fish, and just literally dangle the bait there, and he comes right up and eats out of your hand.
So you don't
Pretty
want
cool.
to get hit by him. So
Yeah.
the spot where this fish was off of Long Island, was it anything special, or was it just kind of random out on the reef?
It was actually a new spot that I had never been before. I was kind of scoping out new areas. I was pretty far down the coast, and I was actually going for wahoo. It's pretty funny because it all started that morning. I was sipping my coffee. I was kind of depressed because I had everything lined up. I had all the gear ready. I had the day planned. It was beautiful weather. I had invited the freedivers on the island to come out with me and go shoot for a world record wahoo. And they bailed on me at the last minute. And so I'm sitting there in the morning, like twiddling my fingers, drinking coffee, looking at the gorgeous water out there. And I was talking with my girlfriend at the time on the phone, and she was cheering me up. And I was like, you know what, babe, you're right. I'm going to go out there. I'm going to shoot a world record in the face. And I had everything ready to go. So I just went out, and I had my custom pole spear rigged up, ready for the wahoo. I had my GoPro with the charged battery. I was saving it aside for the wahoo record. And before I went blue water, I started off in the shallow waters just on the reefs and spearing some grouper to pay for gas. And so I headhunter nomad with me and getting a few groupers in the boat, paying for gas. And I came upon this patch reef I'd never been to. It's like 55 feet of water. And I saw like a 40-pound Cubera swimming around. I made a pass at him. He wasn't playing ball. And so I speared a grouper nearby to try and like get him curious to come in closer, threw the grouper in the boat. And then I look over to my right, and this behemoth prehistoric thing is just swimming across the white sand towards the reef. And I'm breathing up, watching this happen, and I'm breathing right on top of a ledge. And I can see him going straight to the ledge, so I just wait. And I try to breathe up as much as I can, and there was just no having it. I was burning with anxiety. I knew it was a record. I could see it, obvious. And I just waited till he went right under that ledge. Soon as he cleared under that ledge out of sight, I just bombed him, burning on that dive, locked and loaded, and I met him. I went right under the ledge,
He was on the other
met
side.
him face to face, and he's just sitting there under the ledge with his mouth going like that. And it all happened in such a split second. I went to reach and get an aim at him. He turned, started to run, and I just licked off a long shot on him. Got him right in the face, and I had it clipped to my belt reel, and he took off running. He was spooling line out like crazy, ran out along the reef. I'm swimming behind him trying to pull the line off the reef so it doesn't get chafed. And he runs around the reef and up into a cave. And so I just go up and I start breathing up again and fighting him on the line. And, you know, I didn't want to force him too much, so I'm kind of like playing him. I'm just like letting him run, pulling him out a little bit as he comes, letting him run for like 15 minutes. And eventually he just swam out. And as soon as he swam out, I just tried to muscle him up as quick as I could. And then it dawned on me, you know, this is probably a bad idea. I've got this pit bull of a fish, mad as hell in the water. I'm by myself, and I'm pulling him up with a belt reel. And this is just bad on every level. And as I was pulling him up, he charged at me. He tried to bite me. And I had to grab the spear and push him back down, and then try to bring him up again. And I'm like, trying to reach for his gills. Finally get a hold on him, and there's no way I could grab my knife. I had like two hands in his gills, and I'm like trying to keep his head above water. And I'm like, bring the boat! And the boat comes over. They get the gaff in him. My dad is on the boat watching, and I had to jump on board. All three of us are like on this gaff trying to heave him over the side. And then there it is, like laying on the deck in front of my face. And I'm just like in awe. I'm staring at my dream come true. And I just don't know what to say. I'm just completely speechless.
Dude.
And I was just astounded. And I mean, like, I never in my life thought that was ever going to happen, you know?
That is so far and away bigger than anything we ever could have imagined. It
nuts.
Is, you know, one of the cool things about records, and everybody says, you know, records are meant to be broken. I'm sorry, but this one is not going to be broken. You
I don't think so.
Took it away from all of us. We're like totally screwed.
I think so.
So unbelievable. Do you have the head there still in the jaw?
Yeah.
Like,
it's all kind of in pieces. I need to work on actually like gluing it together. But
oh my God.
No, yeah,
you would not want to get, I mean, that thing doesn't even look like a Cubera. Are those teeth missing, or did you pull them out?
There's a couple that are broken off naturally, and then a couple that kind of sank back up and recessed in there.
Luke, that is so silly. It looks like some sort of dinosaur.
Yeah, it's nuts. I'm going to talk to Brad. I'm sure he's watching this now. I'd like to have it all glued together and put it on a display at the Headhunter site over there.
Yeah,
be cool for people to come in and check it out. And I still got the injector rod bent to a 90 degree.
Yeah, I bet.
And the spear hole through his face, his cheekbone.
Mm-hmm. So run me through your Bluewater rig, like your Bluewater pole spear setup, starting at the tip.
So yeah, it's a exciting new design that Brad and I have been working on. and I can't talk on it too much because it's a lot of it's not public knowledge yet.
Well, tell me
But it's
how many you normally rig. Obviously, when that comes out, it'll be phenomenal. And we've
yeah.
obviously gone back and forth with that stuff too. But for the layman, how would you set up a regular pole spear for like a client coming that you're going to have him free diving with a buoy and float line?
I mean, it really depends what you're shooting. Like a lot of the spears, if it's just reef fish, I just clip right onto the rubber. And most spears are, decent enough to handle just a reef fish.
Mm-hmm.
But the pelagics, like the tuna, the wahoo, I mean, from that slip tip to the buoy, to the float, everything has to be a solid connection, one streamline,
Mm-hmm.
minimum 500-pound test connection.
Mm-hmm.
And so I typically run, first 2 feet, foot and a half, 2 feet of cable from the slip tip along the spear. I normally hook it into a traditional little bungee system, how it
Mm-hmm.
typically comes, and run the Dyneema back, connected to the back of the spear, and then as a shooting line from the spear up to the length of the grip. So the draw length would be
Mm-hmm.
a shooting
Right.
line, basically. And then clip that shooting line to the bungee. Um, I mean, that's kind of a typical rig, but it's complicated. A lot of people can't really use it. Even experienced divers struggle with it in the heat of the moment. Um, I mean, there was the big wahoo that Brad shot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how he was actually even able to land it because, it was such a rush. I handed him my spear and everything happened so quick that he forgot to load the shooting line with it. And somehow the spear still had enough velocity and energy to penetrate the spear into his spine.
Mm-hmm.
And it was super lucky on so many levels to get that fish.
Yeah. Whenever I first started trying to do the pelagics, Rife had a pretty basic tip that we did for full breakaway. And from that, the evolution has come, much further. But generally, I can rig any pole spear on a trip for blue water, whether it be tunas or wahoo or whatever, with you can do rubber bands, but I prefer just electrical tape and like Spectra. Like if you have some of that 500-pound Spectra, you can do electrical tape, Spectra. You usually already have a rubber band on the pole spear for the tip, and you can engineer something on there to
Oh, yeah.
break away. But probably the key thing that you set in there is when his basic setup, and this is the setup we use for breakaway. You have your tip, and then you've got your cable, and then from the cable you have that tied directly to 500-pound Spectra, and it goes the entire length of the pole spear. And then I usually tape it to the pole spear just so it's kept in 3 spots so it's tidy.
Right.
And then I run it through the back of the pole spear. Actually, I scratched that. What I do is I put 2 rubber bands on the back of the pole spear, and I run it through there so it's got a little bit of play. And then I run it all the way back up to where I'm going to grip. So you have that much slack as you load, so there's the pole spear is not inhibited whatsoever. Now that's a
Yeah.
very advanced setup. For the most part on a trip, what we do is we've got a 50 or 100-foot float line and a buoy and a big tuna clip or a what do you call it, a big snap swivel. And people's biggest mistake is taking that snap or the tuna clip and clipping it right to the back of the pole spear. If you do
God.
that, somebody is
No.
already
Just
holding on
no.
to the back of your pole spear like this,
Don't.
putting pressure on. You need to have slack to be able to shoot. So what we do is, if this is your pole spear band here on your spear, and this is like where your hand would go in the pole spear, you make sure that the line, your float line, is attached here at the apex of the band. And again, I'll use that Spectra, and I'll make a loop of Spectra about that big, and I'll just run it around the band, so it's around the band like that. And then this loop here, I'll clip off my float line. Does that
Right.
make sense? So it's a quick and easy way so that people can go down and shoot, and they can just let go of the pole spear. And by putting that little piece of line there at the apex of the band, it always keeps the the most slack for you to shoot, actually.
Right.
You know, so that's
one of the beauties of this spear, this new prototype, is that, Brad and I have kind of done all the thinking and ironed out all the hard rigging and stuff to make it work, and we've kind of simplified it into plug and play, to speak, clip and kill. Basically,
there you go.
It's all ready to go. You clip on, and everything is just it's made for getting world records, pelagic species, any big fish that you want to stop.
What'd you guys call it?
We're still working on that. Yeah, we're still trying to come up with a name. So any suggestions?
Well, we'll try to come up with something tomorrow. I think Brad's going to come on tomorrow. I think he had to do the dishes or something tonight.
Yeah.
So, what is the best? I ask everybody this. What is the best advice anyone has given you for spearfishing?
That's a good one. I mean, there's never been any just profound speech or moment that any particular one person has said that just made it click, and everything is just like, oh, that makes sense, It's always been little bits and pieces of either watching other people, their form and their technique, or, hearing their input on it, their ways of doing it, and amongst so many people, kind of blending everything together into your own style and what works for you, and, putting it to the test and kind of trial and error. I mean, really, a lot of things is just trial and error, I found.
Yeah. One of the hardest things I find for people pole spearing is how to hold a pole spear on the surface while they're swimming.
Yeah.
What do you suggest? Because obviously everybody's always trying to be as streamlined as they possibly can, but you want to be ready. So how do you hold your pole spear when you're like covering ground on the reef?
If I'm the one hunting, I'm typically either having it pointed straight forward, just holding the spear, letting the rubber dangle back to where the spear's already in line with the fish, and all I have to do is slide it forward, grab the grip, and I'm ready to load and shoot. When I'm guiding, a lot of the times I just grab the rubber and let it dangle behind me, but that's not ideal when you're in the hunting situation.
Right.
My kind of rule of thumb is always have the spear pointed to where you want to shoot at.
Agreed.
So, yeah.
And where you're
even on
going
the dive,
as well.
Sorry?
And where you're going. Like, when people are getting ready to dive, you need to have that pole spear pointed straight down. Don't have it pointed like this. It needs to be straight down, and you're following that thing down. You got to streamline. You're fighting too many different things.
That's kind of one of the benefits I've found with the pole spear as well, is that especially for some of the deeper diving, I use it as a pendulum, basically, to guide me down. If you've ever noticed, in blue water, it's so hard to dive completely vertical without a dive line to guide you. There's no vertical line of reference. So, using the pole spear with gravity itself to pull, completely straight down, using it to guide you, is kind of what I found is the best method. So trying to give you an example here. We
gotta run.
Get the little piece of an example. So when I'm diving, I'm always in the, ready to shoot position. And I'll do my duck dive, 2 hands, swipe back down, and I'm tucking my hand. So basically, I tuck my hand onto my hip, and I'm holding the pole spear very lightly, and I'm just letting it dangle. And it basically wants to fall with gravity completely straight down. And with that tucked on my hip and the pole spear straight down, I know I can just streamline along the pole. I can keep my head chucked, my chin tucked, and I just let the pole spear bounce on and off of my shoulder. Very easy, and I know I'm going completely straight down. If it falls off too much, it means I'm planing out. If it pushes too hard, it means I'm inverted. So bouncing it right like that, streamline, and it guides you like perfectly vertical.
And for someone who's aimed a pole spear, how do you explain it to them to aim?
So
because this is something that
when
comes
you're
up
loading
every
up,
single day.
Yeah, so when you're loading up, basically rubber over the 4 fingers, you're gripping it overhand with this hand, underhand with this hand. You're reaching all the way up to the grip. You're drawing it back, and at the same time doing a quarter twist of the band to
Mm-hmm.
spiral it. You get to your grip, you extend your arm, you lift it high to your eye, and you lock your arm to the side,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a good peripheral aim down the spear. The
Mm-hmm.
higher the arm and the spear is to your eye, the more accurate you can shoot.
Right.
A lot of people will load and they'll shoot like this,
Right.
and they'll miss. They'll be shooting low. Because if you try to get a peripheral aim from that low point, it's so hard to
It's off.
judge,
And
It's like the sights on a gun, basically.
and that's pretty much dead on what I would say. Like I always tell people,
Yeah.
basically, you're aiming down your thumb, but you've got that pole spear along your arm, and you
Yeah.
need to extend. So many people make the mistake of just being like,
Yeah.
letting it go. Get your arm straight
Right.
out, get as close as you can, but also time it. Keep it back. You can load it.
Yeah.
I'll load it, and I'll hold the whole thing right here, loaded.
Yeah.
So it takes pressure off, and then I'll lower it down to my waist until I get close, and then I'll extend in one fluid motion and shoot.
Yeah. And then the other important thing I've seen, especially for a lot of girls out there that they kind of flinch on the shot, a part of the reason for extending and rotating and locking your arm is that it can't absorb the shot. When you let go,
Mm-hmm.
your arm is locked. So you're keeping the resistance against that band, and that is what drives the velocity of the spear. A lot of people will shoot and they'll go, ugh, on the
Mhm.
shot, and it basically cancels out the velocity. You just absorb the shot.
Right.
So don't flinch.
Yeah, don't flinch. Well, that makes sense. So next question, what's the deepest you've shot a fish, and what was it?
The deepest I've shot a fish was 134. It was a Nassau grouper. And I was out there diving with a good buddy of mine, Alex Davies. He's a phenomenal free diver in Barbados. And so I had the perfect dive buddy. He's elite safety diver. I wanted to push my limits a little bit and just, feel the waters, see what I could do. And yeah, I just went down there. I was feeling comfortable and shot the grouper, came back up. It eventually rocked up,
Oh, God.
and he had to do another dive on it, and the sharks eventually got it. But
Huh.
it was pretty exciting nonetheless.
So that was just free diving, not pendulum or anything.
No, that was just constant weight free dive down.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah.
No thanks. Especially not for a Nassau. I would have been pretty
Yeah,
disappointed.
right.
But it is pretty cool to shoot something with a pole spear that depth. And I know that you and Ryan were doing some deep stuff, pendulum and stuff. But I'm personally glad you're not doing that anymore.
Yeah, I try to shy away from it. I mean, I still try to keep up in shape with it to some degree, not do obscene dives, but at least, be a triple digit hunter to some degree, and just, have a sense of ability to be able to always be there for my clients. Guiding clients as you get so many levels, some are shallow, some are super deep. When I have guys out there, in the deep hunting triple digits, I feel a beholdency to be able to help them if there was a situation, So to be able to keep myself in shape to do that and have the ability, it kind of makes me feel a little more comfortable.
Yeah, for sure. Because I mean, you want it. You want to be able to do it. You want to have that in the reserve if you ever do need it. So here's a good question that comes up for both the longest pole spear ever used. So whenever we were designing the first good pole spears for the U.S., we went through a lot of trial and error to figure out what the optimal length was. And I had always thought, well, you need a really long one, to be able to get X, Y, Z, but you get to a point of diminishing returns. When you get such a long pole spear, you've got a long band, and you have a lot of friction, so it slows everything down. So I think that 9.5 foot is about the best overall, kind of general. And if you can go shorter, go shorter. The shorter ones are going to be even faster. Once you start getting really big and really long, what we've started doing is kind of a hybrid pole spear that is stiff in the back. So we'll use like a Nomad back section that you can load 8 feet of it, or 7.5 feet or whatever, and have 4 foot of Predator out in front. So it's a lighter one. So you still get an 11 footer that you can shoot those, pelagics with. But I mean, personally, I think ideal is like 8-9 foot. You get much bigger than that. It's too much to move around in the water. I love an 8 foot. I mean, 8 foot's nice. And then, range wise, I always tell people a pole spear is going to have the range of what you've got it loaded. Does that sound about right?
For most pole spears, that's pretty much the case. I don't believe in that. I mean, that's just the actuality of it.
Mm-hmm.
I believe in, the full length of the pole spear, not including the injector, is the potential of the pole spear if it's made right.
That's a good way of saying
it. And that's pretty much what we've kind of narrowed down with this new prototype. Utilizing the full potential, everything is balanced and weighted accordingly. And I've been shooting fish, it's to 95% of its length so far. Yeah.
So if you had to suggest one pole spear, one length, one setup, what would it be? Roller or regular? And which one?
I love the traditional bands. I hate the rollers.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm trophy hunting, I prefer an 11.5 foot spear.
Wow.
If I'm reef hunting for regular hogfish groupers, I prefer a 9.5 foot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So when the rollers kind of made a comeback here, and tomorrow night Brad will give like kind of the whole history on rollers. It's pretty interesting. I hated them. I couldn't hit broadside of a bourne. I was trying to hit lobsters and stuff. I think I ended up giving the pole spear away. And then Brad came out with them again and kind of tweaked them and made them a little smaller, a little faster, and I started liking them. But the key thing for me is to have that narrow handle, so it's in because you're so used to the pole spear band, which is real thin and it's easy to hold. Having that narrow band in your hand makes a big difference.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for sure.
That's been pretty sweet. But yeah, man, what you got? Any other gold for us?
I mean, let's answer some questions, I guess. What do they have?
Yeah, if you guys got any questions besides where to stay down south, like obviously if you guys are going down to Long Island, go hit up Luke. He'll put you on some cool stuff. But what's the sketchiest dive you guys have been on? I don't have enough time for that, but you can answer that one.
Oh God, sketchiest dives. It's probably out there with Ryan Myers doing our crazy stuff, baiting up this epic area where, of course, the sharks are just insane and ravenous, but so much other life is coming out. And we baited up the world. I mean, everything was coming out, but the sharks were insane. There was probably 15 reef sharks just swarming around us, and we had chum in the water all around us. The sharks are coming in, and we just couldn't. We got overwhelmed. We couldn't poke them all fast enough there. We couldn't watch our backs anymore. It was nuts. It was intense. So we got out.
Chum till they're done, but then all the sharks
sketchy.
come.
Yeah.
So now that you've gotten, obviously, the freaking unicorn of all Cuberas, what's next on your bucket list?
Well, I kind of made a promise to myself that with the trophy fish like that, I'll never shoot another fish any smaller than the last one that I previously shot. Mm-hmm. So for me, that kind of cancels out Cubera. To this day, I haven't shot another Cubera, and I probably never will in my life.
Shoot, you did that with yellowfins on our trip. Like you shot that big yellowfin and you passed up other ones after. I was like, man, I'd be stroking everyone.
Yeah.
But we had so much meat. I mean, there really was no reason to do it then.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Still, one of my top fish on the list for a pole spear is a dogtooth tuna, and the bluefin tuna, and a halibut. Those are probably top 3.
Really? Halibut?
Yeah.
I would have thought that you were going to say a 100-pound wahoo because that's probably the most accessible to you.
It's still on my list, but I mean, for me, traveling somewhere and having the ambitions to go and actually seek out a record, it's probably one of those 3.
Well, we can get on the doggy stuff. I mean, they're tough, man. Like, but they come close. You know, it's just a matter of having the right conditions to land things. Because even with a gun in perfect conditions, they're extremely, you know, difficult to land. So you use a belt reel a lot, and Zach's asking this question for float line versus belt reel. What is your suggestion on this?
Belt reel lives on my belt. I never dive without it, and I try to avoid using it as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the most dangerous thing that you can work with in the water. Um, I never let any beginners use it unless I'm right there with them watching.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had situations with the belt reel where I've almost died a few times.
So what goes wrong? Because you know I'm aware,
So
but it's good for people to hear this because I preach
yeah,
as well. Like,
yeah. I mean, there's so many things that could go wrong, and of course, we're still learning it every day. But things I've noticed: you go down, you shoot a fish, you come back up, it's rocked up, and then you do a second dive on it. When you're doing that second dive and spending too much time, all of that line is falling back on you,
you got all
and
this.
that's how I almost died at one point. And then, yeah, right, exactly.
That's exactly what happens.
Yeah. And then other mistakes are when you have your bell reel on, you pull it out the length, you clip it on your spear, but you leave the spool loose,
Mm-hmm.
and then it secretly spools out without you knowing, and it loops a line around your back or around an arm. You shoot something big, and all of a sudden, whoop, you get yucked around and you're entangled.
Jeez.
So I grab the clip on my belt reel, I extend a full loaded arm length, and then I clip it onto my pole spear and I tighten up the reel again so it
Mm-hmm.
can't come back out. And as soon as I hit a fish, then I quickly grab it, loosen it, and kind of play it from there.
Hmm.
I'll grab the line with my thumb and hold it out on the side of my body, and I'm swimming up with the line just out like that the whole time away from me.
Right.
And then I get to the
That
surface,
just sketches me
pull,
out.
dump to the side, always swim forward, never dumping it next to you, always swimming
Right.
forward, just dumping to the side.
So we
But
use the argument always. There's so many more reasons to use a float, and it's frustrating to have multiple people with floats in the water. Like, you've got to learn how to manage your stuff, but
yeah,
first and foremost, they can see you.
yep,
Everyone can see you. The boat can see you. The other guys in the water can see you. You can stay together. If you're down, someone has something to hold on to help pull your fish up. Like, there's a million and one reasons to have that. There may be a time and a place for the reels on your belt, but man, it's terrifying because it's the opposite in hunting with a gun. You've got your reel, at least I suggest having the reel almost totally slack, like ready to pay out, just enough to hold the line on there so that when you shoot, you just use your hand as the drag. You know, you don't have to fiddle with anything else. It's just your hand as the drag on the reel. That way, if you need a free spool, you can just let it off, you know, because what happens is people will have the back of the gun like this, and then they'll be messing with the drag, and by then it's too late, or the line buries or something. Because if it's too tight at the beginning, like in your situation, and the line had been put on there loose before, it'll bury into the spool and come tight, and you're dropping. You know, you're gonna have to drop your weight belt.
yeah, scary.
But what about the slings with the reels? Do you use slings much?
I used to be just predominantly a sling diver and used them with the reels before. I've even made up the full breakaway systems on it. That's how I shot my first wahoo, was with a headhunter gorilla sling and a full breakaway. But after using the pole spears, I mean, they're just so much more convenient and easier, and on so many levels, which is more productive in general.
And I'm sure you've heard the
Um,
rumor of people like some old school Bahamians saying they're trying to outlaw pole spears in the Bahamas because they're too effective.
yeah,
Have you
I
heard
hear
that
that
before?
rumor. Yeah, a
They
lot of
really
people are
are.
watching videos and they're getting jealous. Well, if they outlaw compressor diving for fish, which I'm not sure if it actually is illegal or not, then maybe we can talk about the pole spears.
Exactly. I mean, it's all in the diver. You know, like I'd
Yeah.
like to think I'm pretty good at catching lobsters, but you go with one of these, Spanish Wells guys, and they freaking what is like a accurate number of how many they can hook in a minute?
Oh my God. I mean, one dude, one of the
30?
top guys I know, Bentley Pinder in Spanish Wells, the guy is a beast. I mean, he told me a time and when he was hooking so many crawfish, I don't know how many per minute, but I think he got 1,500 pounds in one day. So that's about 3,000 lobsters in one day. His arm went numb from hooking so fast. It's crazy.
Well, so most people probably aren't familiar with that. Explain the hook and the hooking of lobsters, which is legal in the Bahamas.
Yeah. So in the Bahamas, it's a free for all. I mean, you can do whatever you want with the lobster, spear them, juke them, whatever. With the hook, it's basically a mini gaff,
Mm-hmm.
and it's got a killing bit on the end, like a spike or a blade. And it's so much quicker for commercial guys. You go down there with this hook, you got a ledge of lobsters. You put the hook right behind where the tail meets the head, that joint, that swivel. Hook them right in that joint. One motion, you grab them, pull them to you, and stab them. We call it hooking and juking.
And as you hook them, as soon as you pull them out, they flip, right? Don't they flip sometimes? You grab them.
Sometimes, yeah, they kind of like fold up and just, yeah, perfect for grabbing them.
But
So my record so far is 6 lobsters on one breath. It's
Yeah.
so much faster.
I think
Yeah.
the other day, I caught 4 on one dive, and myself, and Chad were all down at the same time, just laughing our asses off. Like maybe it was not Chad, maybe it was Sebastian or whatever. But I mean, we were just like, they were just like got under this ledge, and they were just like these look downs behind me. They were like that, and we were just
Yeah.
like, and we were like coming to the surface like this, just all laughing.
Yeah.
But it is pretty incredible. I love lobster diving as much as I love spearfishing. Like I'll catch lobsters all day, and I've had a couple clients been like, okay, it's enough with the lobsters, like, because I'll just if I
Right.
find them, I'm gonna pick them up, and point them out, and they're like, no, let's just wait for the 10 pounders.
Yeah.
But so there's another good point. So Bahamians, you have to be on a Bahamian boat to be able to get unlimited lobsters, which is the Bahamian limit, correct?
No, actually. That's what I thought too, but apparently the law it cancels out any foreigners basically. Anytime there's foreigners involved, the
It's
law is just restricting.
right.
So for me, I charter obviously, and then sometimes commercial fish. I have a commercial license. When I go out, I don't have a limit. I can get as much as I want. But the moment that a foreigner is on my boat, then the foreign catch limits apply to me.
So
So I'm
10.
limited to 10 lobsters, 60 pounds, or 20 fish, whichever is
Right.
the lesser of the two,
So
blah, blah, blah.
that's something good to explain, which most Americans are either oblivious to or they just don't care. So
Yeah.
you're allowed 10 lobsters per boat
Yep.
for a foreign vessel, or if there's a foreigner on the boat. That's just the way it is. You're
Right.
allowed 18 pelagic fish, which can be in any combination of dolphin, wahoo, and tuna. You're
Yep.
allowed however many conchs, what is it, like 10 conchs or something?
6 con.
6 conchs, and you're not even allowed to bring them back to the U.S. In any way, shape, or form. And then with fish, it's 20 basically reef fish or 60 pounds of
Yep.
fish.
Yeah. Whichever is the lesser of the two. Yeah.
Right. Which, I mean, this is where it blows my mind when like people post stuff and I'm like, Jesus, man. Like,
Yeah.
and
And I mean, even for myself too, I used to be really bad at it. I used to be one of those guys that I thought the dock of death was something cool.
mm-hmm.
And I would go out there and just murder way too much. And, years later, I'm seeing hardly any more fish out there. And I'm wondering why. Well, duh, you know. So I really tried to limit the amount of death toll that I have
Mm-hmm.
out there these days. I'm out there mostly with clients most of the time. And I'll try to avoid even spearing anything, for the entire time that we're diving. I just let the clients do the killing
Mm-hmm.
and we get our limit. Sometimes if they're real newbie clients, they're struggling, but they really want some fresh food, then I'll oblige them, but it's not massacring, trying to avoid all of that now. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I've seen the effects that I'm having, and it's not something you want to make a habit of.
So how much pressure, I mean, and this is a double-edged sword here. How much pressure do you guys see down that way? Because we always hear rumors of the Dominicans or the Haitians coming up and just wiping out like Hogsty and Crooked and Acklands and all that kind of stuff. Have you guys ever
Yeah.
seen them out there?
You'll hear a lot of rumors about Dominicans and whatnot, which, to be fair, it is true for the most part. The southern Bahamas is completely dead, basically. Everywhere
Mm-hmm.
I've gone in the southern Bahamas, it's wiped out. There's no reef fish. The reef is healthy and alive, but I think between Dominicans and hurricanes, it really took a toll, at least in the past 5 years. And there's been Dominicans, from time to time caught in the southern Bahamas. They're running across on little pangas, basically all the way from
Mm-hmm.
DR. Sometimes they'll come in motherships, and there's just not enough, influence in the south to watch everything going on.
Mm-hmm.
But then around more of the main islands, it's the locals are to blame. They want to blame Dominicans, but they don't realize the impact that they each have. They're all commercial fishermen. They're making a living
Fish
off of this,
trapping.
which
You're
means
doing
that
it all.
they have to kill a lot of fish, otherwise they don't make money.
Yeah.
So all of these guys are obviously making money. They're obviously killing a lot of fish to make it happen, and they're setting a lot of them around Long Island set the fish pots,
Mm-hmm.
which I've got nothing against fish pots if it's done right. It can be one of the most sustainable methods of fishing, but they don't do it right at all. They don't put any self-destruct panels on it, so when they lose hundreds of pots, they're just out there years and years later killing and catching,
Mm-hmm.
and they're catching all of the reef fish. These biomass on a reef. They drop a pot down there and they catch everything, and they'll kill everything. They won't
Mm-hmm.
let the parrotfish go. The herbivores to keep maintain a healthy reef. They kill it all and they recycle it as bait. And so it's a lot of bad habits, a lot of things that we really need to correct and to change in this country before we can see a better Bahamas.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one of the most significant places that I've seen the effects of that is that stretch from Nassau down to you on the tongue. Like,
Yeah.
it is just annihilated. And same
Yeah.
thing like up in the gingerbreads up off of Bimini. You'll go up there sometimes and it looks like crab pots. You're like, holy
Yeah.
crap. And it's just dead. And it's the best reefs. And you're just like, it's just dead. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But to each his own. Everybody's got to make a living, and it's your guys' country. So,
Yeah. It's a tricky one. It's got to consider the livelihoods, but then you got to consider the future as well, and you got to make it all sustainable.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons I've tried to get out of commercial fishing. I've tried to branch out and go more and more towards charter fishing. Why kill 50 hogfish when you get the same amount of money for clients shooting 5?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
hopefully more
definitely
people
goes further. It's more
get
fun.
on that bandwagon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not really. I used to hate spearfishing because I used to do it for a living.
I'm saying that's what I'm saying. It's more fun now.
Oh
Like, you're
yeah,
not
it's
killing
way more
somebody.
fun just going out there recreational with clients. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, vacation.
Well, Luke, I know you're having a little cabin fever down there. I hope you get out this week. You guys, please, check Luke out on Instagram. How do you pronounce your last name? Maillis?
Maillis.
Yep,
Yes.
which is a relatively common Bahamian name.
Yeah. Good luck with that one.
But phenomenal human, incredible diver. We really appreciate your intel. And you, without giving anything away, you gave us a ton of incredible, information today. And we really look forward to seeing the pole spear that you and Brad have designed. And obviously I'll see you quite a bit this year, doing trips. So yeah, we look forward to seeing you. And everybody that watched, thank you guys for coming on. We'll see you again tomorrow night at 9. We're going to have Brad Thornborough of Headhunter on here. And if you guys have any other topics or, people that you want us to interview, just let me know.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
All right, buddy. Take care. I'll talk to you soon.
Take care.
See you, dude.